what do you do if you want something that's fast and fun, but the normal super saloons and hot hatchbacks, perhaps they're just a little bit too ordinary, or maybe not focused enough? Well, I might have the answer, and it comes from a company that puts fun and simplicity at the core of everything they do. Now, if you enjoy what we do, make sure you subscribe, make sure you click the little bell icon to get notifications when we upload a new video, and make sure you like this video, make sure you comment, and make sure you visit newmotoring.com. This is the Caterham 310R, and it's probably one of the most focused cars you can buy. Why? Well, you might say that it follows a recipe that's 45 years old and it's very small and it's got a smallish engine. How can it be one of the most focused cars you can buy? But think about it. You buy one of these, you're giving up things like a proper roof, heated seats, a radio, air conditioning, so many things, and you do it because you want to have fun when you go for a drive. The 310 is Caterham's middle model. You've got the 160, then the 270, then the 310, and then after that you've got the 360, the 410 and the 620. Every model Caterham makes, with the exception of the 620 because it is just so fast and Caterham would rather they built it, you can build at home yourself, and you save yourself £3,000 by doing it. And apparently 20% of people who buy a Caterham do actually build them themselves. The engine is a naturally aspirated Ford Sigma unit. It's a 1.5 litre. It's got 152 brake horsepower at 7,000 RPM, 7,000, and 124 pounds-feet of torque at 5,600 RPM. That doesn't sound like a lot, does it? That is until you consider the fact that this car weighs 540 kilos. For reference, a Mazda MX-5 weighs almost double that. Double. The result is 0 to 62 miles an hour takes 4.8 seconds, and the top speed is 128 miles an hour. That, for a 1.5 litre with 150 horsepower, that's pretty quick. And this engine, it doesn't really like just sitting at idle or sitting quite low in the revs. You need to rev it, and when you do rev it, it's just a bit of a monster. I know it's hard to believe because it's a 1.5 litre, but honestly, trust me, you get this in the right gear at the right time. And the exhaust, because it's just a few inches away, I can see it just out there. Not only is it incredibly loud in here, and it is incredibly loud as you can probably tell, you need to be very careful when you're getting in and out of the car that you don't burn your legs. A nice touch. Although Caterham did tell me that the exhaust used to be on the other side, but they swapped it over because they found that people were getting spat out on the pavement. Not by the driver, by burning fuel. And what about the R in the 310R's name? Well, that changes pretty much everything, apart from the engine and the gearbox. You get a limited slip differential, you get a lightweight flywheel, you get sport suspension, you get 15-inch wheels rather than 14-inch wheels, you get composite seats, you get 4-point harnesses, you get shift lights, and so much more. All for £3,995. That is what makes up the R part of the 310R's name. Other options that this car has include creature comforts like a £300 heater and £1,250 for a full windscreen and a roof. And it also has a 6-speed manual gearbox rather than a 5-speed that you get as standard. That's £2,500. All in all, a 310R will set you back £28,990. This car, with its options, is £36,695. It's got a few options. How does it drive? Well, as I've already said, I mean, the engine is just hilarious. The steering wheel is tiny, which does take some getting used to, but because the steering is entirely unassisted, you can tell from the weight, from the vibrations coming back through the wheel, exactly what's happening. And it just points. I know saying it's like a go-kart is probably one of the most cliched things any motoring journalist can say about a Caterham, but I think the combination of the tyre, the low centre of gravity and the low weight mean you can just put it exactly where you want to. And speaking of that, physically it is really, really tiny. So even in a conventional lane on an A road where you'd normally be reasonably close to the white line or reasonably close to the verge, you've got so much space to play with, and you can see the tops of the wheels, so you know exactly where you are all of the time. The suspension is firm. At low speeds particularly, it's really quite choppy, and because I'm sitting right next to the rear wheel, you go over some bumps and compressions and you really do feel them, you really do. But actually, I'm surprised that this can be quite supple. You can feel, once you're up, you've got a bit more speed, you can feel the movement in the suspension. You can feel it soak up the bumps. It doesn't batter you as much as you think it would once you get going. The gearbox? Well, as you may or may not be able to hear, it does make a bit of a whine, but the gear lever, it's so short, it's so precise, it's a real joy to use, and the ratios are so performance driven. Get up to 60-70 miles an hour and you're doing about 4,000 RPM, but what that means is that the ratios, they're just so short, so when you're changing up and down through the gears, it's just brilliant. The gearbox works perfectly with this engine. You'd never think that 150 brake horsepower could feel so relentless, and part of that is obviously to the engine and the weight, but part of that is down to the ratios. They're just and the brakes, well, they're quite small really. I think they're 2-piston calipers, solid diffs front and back, but they don't need to be big because the car weighs nothing. The brake pedal feels really, really nice. You can feel everything that's going on. And one thing though that you've got to watch out for is that the pedal box is very small. The pedals are very close together. So you've got to make sure when you brake hard, particularly if you're getting in this for the first time, that you wear the right shoes. Otherwise you'll find yourself braking and also accelerating. That's not ideal if you're coming up to a corner. Flaws? Well, the harnesses might look cool, and I'm sure if you're doing track days they probably are quite useful, but in the real world you don't need these. I'd rather have seat belts. Having harnesses kind of puts me off getting in the car to do things because it's just a bit of a faff. And as well, these composite seats, they're actually a little bit more comfortable than you probably think they would be, but still, they're not massively comfortable. And a more comfortable seat would not ruin the experience. It would not make the experience of the 310R any worse. It would just mean my bum wasn't numb. What the 310R offers is simplicity. There's no ABS, there's no traction control, there's nowhere to store anything at all. It's a car that says to people like you and me, people who like driving, let's just go out for a drive, for fun. It isn't for everyone. Not at all. But there's nothing wrong with that.